Hello, 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 beautiful and amazing people. How is everyone tonight? Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. I'm super excited that you guys are here. So tonight I do have a lot planned for you guys. Tonight we are going to be learning how to actually build wealth the right way utilizing a trust, okay? So tonight I'm going to give you the step-by-step instructions on what you need to do in order to set up a trust entity and protect your assets, okay? So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Christina Yvette. I am a trust strategist, you guys. And I have been a trustee since 2015, and that is the way that I have been operating. So the way that I got into trust was by way of real estate. I was originally, my career was in nursing. So I was a registered nurse for about 7 years. So from 2013 until 2020 when the pandemic happened. And in the midst of that, I was actually, I was 1 year into my career and I was already burnt out. And I was burnt out because I was literally working 5 days a week. And I was doing these 12-hour shifts from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. Okay. And from then, what was happening was I realized that one, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was like literally in what you call the rat race. And I was spending more time in the hospital with my patients and my coworkers than I was spending time at home with my 1-year-old son. So I became extremely frustrated, and I told myself that I have to find a way to make money so that I could spend more time at home with my family. And what I ended up doing was I was driving to work one day and I heard this guy on the radio. His name is Stan Merrill, and he was on one of those HGTV shows. And so in the actual, on the radio, he said to himself, do you want to learn how to flip houses? And so when I heard that, I was like, yeah, I want to learn how to flip houses. So I signed up for a seminar. It was a 3-day seminar. I went to the seminar, and in this seminar, I learned more about real estate than I had ever known in my entire life. And I grew so motivated and passionate to start investing in real estate that 6 months after the seminar, I ended up buying my first piece of property, my first investment property that I was going to flip. So it was a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Miami. And I bought this house for $89,000. And a couple months later, I ended up selling it for $235,000. And at that point, this was life-changing for me because I finally realized that I was, one, able to make money outside of the hospital, outside of nursing, and two, that my money made money for me because one, I did not put up the money to buy that house. I had a hard money lender, which was my mentor. So my mentor is the one who put up the money for the house, 100% of it. I didn't put in a dollar. And he told me that I had to put this property into a trust. And I'm like, what is a trust? I didn't know. I was young. I was 25 years old at that time. So I was like, what is a trust? And so he began to, educate me on what a trust was. And this guy had over 2,000 properties and they were in trust. So I was looking at, the blueprint right there, right? Someone who was mentoring me and who had all these properties and who was utilizing trust in order to protect as well. So that's exactly what I did. I ended up setting up a trust and I put that property into the trust because I did not want to put myself in a position to where, to where somebody could sue me. Because one, this is my first property. I've never done a fix and flip before, and I didn't want to jeopardize the situation. So what ended up happening is, hold on one second. All right, so what ended up happening is I didn't want, you know, to jeopardize my situation with this house because it was being renovated. So there was contractors, there was plumbers, there was carpenters, there was all kind of people, all kind of traffic in and out. And I didn't want someone to slip and fall and be able to sue me and take the property from me. Remember, this is my first property. I never bought real estate before. So I did exactly what he said, and I put that property into a trust, and I've been operating as a trustee ever since, you guys, and that was in 2015. So with that being said, what I want to do is I just want to share a little bit of my experience and knowledge with you guys about how I have been operating, you know, as a trustee, and just give you guys, you know, the tools that you need, the information and the blueprint. Okay. So with that being said, I have a short presentation for you guys. So we're going to go through a few slides. And then after that, I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A. So if you have any questions about any of the information that I'm going to be sharing tonight, please just write it down. And as soon as I'm done, I'll be able to answer your questions, okay? All right, all right, all right. And let's see who we got in the house. We got A. Porter. We have Adrian, Amina. We have Elisa. We have Andrea, Anika, Anise. We have Arshia, Betty, Chris, Christine, Clay, Dario, D, Dennis, Esther, Evelyn, Immaculate, Giles, Karen, Kenneth, Kim, Larry, Marco, Marcus, Marvell, Malika, Prince, Raymond. All right, Ramon. All right, we got Shirley, Steve, Tanya, Tanika, Velma. All right, you guys, so we're just gonna get started here. So like I said, I got a short presentation, so we're gonna go through a few slides and then I'll be able to answer any and all of your questions, okay? So here we go. All right. So like I said, welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar, the right way to build wealth. All right. So I am Christine Yvette. I do have a disclaimer for you guys. This is not legal advice or tax advice. So I am not a licensed attorney or a certified public accountant, okay? So I am a trustee and I'm just giving you guys information based on how to become a trustee and trusteeship, okay? So the objective of tonight is for you guys to learn what is a trust, some tax strategies, who the contributors are, with the trust, how to begin to operate a trust, some wealth strategies, and asset protection, okay? So these companies, right? You got the Trump organization, you got Exxon, Microsoft, Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, right? So these are billion-dollar organizations, you guys. And how is it that these companies pay little to no taxes, right? We have heard Trump say that he doesn't pay taxes because he's smart. We have heard Warren Buffett say that he pays less taxes than his secretary, right? So how is that possible? Well, the answer to that question is it's possible because they all have trust within their structure, right? So if you want to put yourself in that position to where you are, you know, playing in the same ball as these, you know, billion-dollar organizations, then you also need to consider that and think about having trust within your structure as well, okay? And it's not just only one trust, it's multiple trusts, but I'll break that down in the next slide, okay? So what is a trust entity, you guys? Well, a trust, you guys, is a contract, okay? This is a living, breathing entity, just like how you are a living, breathing entity, okay? And it comes into fruition by way of a contract. So you are going to have this contract. It's going to be written down in black and white. You're going to print it out. You're going to sign it. It's going to become legalized, okay? And so there's two parts to the contract that I want you to be aware of. The first part is the declaration of the contract, okay? So that is where you're declaring what it is and what it is not. So you're declaring that it is a trust that you are setting up within this contract, and you're declaring that it is not a limited liability company, a joint venture, a partnership, or a corporation, or any of those other types of entities, okay? So that's the first part to the contract. The second part is the indenture. The indenture is the actual bylaws of the trust. So that's the rules and regulations of how you want this trust to be operated, right? So how you are intending to operate it, as well as the future people who are going to operate it, when you step down from the trust organization, okay? So that is what it is. So now let's talk about the different parties involved in this contract. So the first party is the grantor. When you're doing your research and your due diligence, you're also going to see the words settlor or trustor. They all mean the same thing, which is creator. That is the person who has created the trust agreement. Okay, so the trust agreement is between two parties, between the grantor and the trustee. So the grantor is setting up this trust for the benefit of somebody else, okay, not for themselves. So they're setting up the trust for the benefit of the beneficiaries, okay? So the second party involved is the trustee. So the trustee is the party that is controlling the trust, okay? They're the controller of the trust. So they are controlling the trust on a day-to-day basis, right? So they are managing all of the assets that are inside of the trust, and they are operating the trust, okay? So they are what we call the fiduciary, okay? And so they are the ones who are making sure that the trust is being ran the right way, and they are the authorized signer on behalf of the trust, and they're building up these assets that are inside of the trust for the beneficiaries, okay? So the next party involved is the beneficiary. Those are the inheritors of the trust, you guys, okay? So the beneficiaries, they have no power and no control. So eventually what's going to happen is they are going to receive the assets that are inside of the trust, and before they receive those assets, they will receive distributions, okay? So that means that they're going to be benefiting from the assets that are inside of the trust until they eventually receive them, if and when. So what you have to do is when you set up the trust, that is the establishment date. And you're going to have to determine how long you want this trust to exist for. So usually we'll have it exist for anywhere between 1 to 100 years. So if let's just say you want to choose 100 years, then it's going to expire in that 100 years, and those assets that are inside of that trust, once that trust expires, needs to go to the beneficiaries. But ultimately, the goal is for you to renew the trust for an additional 100 years so that you can actually maintain that generational wealth, okay? So let's keep moving on. So next we have the different types of trust. There are hundreds of different types of trust, you guys, okay? So you need to do your research and your due diligence to find out which trust is the best trust for you. Now, what I want to do is I want to explain a couple of different categories when it comes to trust, okay? So the first category that I want to tell you guys about is express versus implied. An express trust is a written trust, okay? So that is the contract style that we are talking about, okay? So it's written in black and white. It's on a contract. You print it out, you sign it, you have a physical, tangible copy, as well as written bylaws that this agreement actually happened, okay? On the contrary to that, you have an implied trust, which is a verbal agreement between the grantor and the trustee, okay? So just like how you can have a verbal contracts between individuals, you could also have a verbal trust, okay? The next category that I want to tell you guys about is simple versus complex. So a simple trust is shorter in nature, and distributions by the trustee to the beneficiaries are required, okay? On the contrary to that, you have a complex trust, which is longer in nature. So that means that there's more of what we call provisions. There's more rules, there's more regulations, there's more bylaws, there's more things that we have to follow, okay? So because the trust is longer in nature, distributions are not required by the trustee, okay? The next category that I want to tell you guys about is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So with a discretionary trust, it means that the trustee is able to make decisions on behalf of the trust that are not written in the contract. Okay, so that is ultimately the type of trust that you want, just in case there's something, that is outdated and the trustee needs to be able to make decisions for the trust that are going to maintain the livelihood of the organization, okay? So on the contrary to that, you have non-discretionary, which means that the trustee is not able to make decisions on behalf of the trust that are not listed inside of the trust, okay? So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is non-statutory versus statutory, okay? So with a statutory trust, right, that means that this particular trust is created in a it's created in a state, right? And so all of the states have their own laws. These laws are called state statutes and codes. So with this particular statutory trust, it means that all of those state statutes and codes are embedded inside of the contract, okay? Which means that this trust is limited where it can only be used in the state where it was created, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that with a statutory trust, you are giving the state jurisdiction to be able to regulate your trust, and 9 times out of 10, that statutory trust becomes a public trust, and it is then registered with the county or the state, okay? So that can be very challenging, and you don't want that type of trust, because anybody and everybody is able to now know the existence of your trust. But like I said, you are limited on where you can operate it. So that means that if you had a piece of real estate in Texas, but you have a statutory trust in North Carolina, you cannot use that trust in Texas. It can only be used in North Carolina, okay? So on the contrary to that, you have non-statutory. So with a non-statutory trust, it means that there are no state statutes and codes, okay? So it's not operating under the state's jurisdiction, but it's operating under the common law jurisdiction, okay? Which means that you can actually use a non-statutory trust in all 50 states as well as all of the US territories. You do not have any type of limitations as far as which, state, city, county, things like that you can use it, okay? Which gives you more flexibility with that type of trust, and it actually maintains its privacy. So you're not going to register it with the state or county. So it's going to remain intact as a private trust, you guys, okay? So now the next category that I want to give you guys is revocable versus irrevocable. So with a revocable trust, right? So when we're talking about the status of the trust, it being revocable or irrevocable, we are referring to the grantor, to that party within this contract, okay? So that party, the grantor, has either revocability or irrevocability, okay? So let's talk about revocable. So with a revocable trust, this trust is seen as an alter ego, right? Or an extension of you, right? The grantor. So with that type of trust, what happens is the grantor has the ability. So the grantor is going to be, that same individual is going to be the grantor and the trustee. So they're able to serve as both roles, okay? So with this type of trust, they're able to make changes and amendments to the trust. They're able to terminate the trust if they wanted to, take back property from the trust, and remove beneficiaries and trustees, okay? So with this type of trust, because it's seen as an extension of you and it's seen as an alter ego, creditors that you have, out there in society are able to come after that trust, okay? So that means that that creditors are able to go after your trust, and if your trust was being sued by one of these creditors, then what would happen is the trust would go into litigation, and that judge could potentially pierce through your trust. So if the judge pierces through your trust, right, a revocable trust, then what will happen is the judge will force you to produce that trust in court. Now, if you have to produce the trust in court, your trust then becomes a part of the public records, okay? And so that means that everyone is going to know the contents of your trust. So every single page of your trust is visible on the public records. That's one. And two, what is going to also happen is they're going to know the assets that you have in there, who the beneficiaries are, and the net worth of the trust, right? So you don't want that to happen, because if you want to set up a trust, you want to maintain what we call obscurity, right? So unfortunately, with a revocable trust, your assets are not fully protected, right? They can very well sue your trust, penetrate through your trust, and actually go after the assets that are inside of your trust, okay? On the contrary to that, we have an irrevocable trust. So with an irrevocable trust, what happens is the grantor and the trustee are not the same person. So the grantor is labeled as the creator, and they have irrevocability. The trustee is obviously labeled as a trustee, and they have all of the control, right? So the grantor, because they have irrevocability, they don't have any control, any power in this trust, okay? And so with that being said, that means that they cannot amend the trust, they cannot terminate the trust, they cannot take back assets from the trust, they cannot remove the trustees or the beneficiaries. So with this type of trust, it's not seen as an alter ego, it's seen as a separate entity from you, okay? A totally separate entity, right? Which is what you want. You want the trust to stand on its own and not be associated with you, okay? So because it's seen as its own separate entity, then what happens is your assets then become fully protected with an irrevocable trust, because creditors for the grantor and the trustee cannot come after this type of trust. And if they try to come after this type of trust, and let's just say that it goes through litigation, the judge would decide not to pierce through an irrevocable trust, okay? So that is the type of, that is the type of trust that you want, because your assets are fully protected and it becomes what we call impenetrable, right? And that's what you want. So let's keep moving on to the next slide, you guys, okay? So let's talk about the different steps that it takes in order to actually create a trust. So number one is you want to determine the type of trust that you want to create. So I just gave you a list of different categories, and I will tell you that for your specific type of trust, you want it to fall within all of these categories. So what you want it to be is you want it to be an express trust. You want it to be discretionary in nature. You want it to be non-statutory. You want it to be complex, and you want it to be irrevocable, okay? So your trust should fall within these 5 categories, okay? So if it does fall within these categories, that is the type of trust that we consider to be a bulletproof trust, right? So it is a trust where your assets are fully protected, and they're impenetrable, right? So the creditors are not coming after that. So that's what you want. Now, let's move on to number 2, which is you determining a name for the trust, right? So when it comes to you actually setting up the trust, right, you want to name the trust, and there's 2 things that you want to avoid. One is you do not want to name the trust after yourself. Remember, this is a private entity. So if your name is John Smith, you're not going to name the trust the John Smith Trust. Why? Because it's a dead giveaway that you're associated with this trust. Right? And so you want to name it things that are very unique, distinct, and not associated with you. So you want to call it, Sunflower Estate, right? No one is going to know that you're associated with Sunflower Estate. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is that you do not have to have the word trust in the name of the entity. So it doesn't have to be Sunflower Trust. right? You don't even want people to know that the entity is a trust. Let their minds wander. Let them think that it's an LLC or a corporation or any other type of entity, okay? But those are the two things that I need you to keep in mind. So people use the words like estate, dynasty, legacy, right? When they are naming their trust, right? So just think about those types of names because you are going to have to give your entity a name, okay? The next thing is that now that you know that you're going to create a trust, go ahead and appoint the different parties that are going to be involved with this trust, right? So the different positions that we have that we went over is a grantor, a trustee, beneficiary, and successor. So for the grantor, if you guys are creating an irrevocable trust, remember, you cannot be the grantor and the trustee, okay? So you're going to have to appoint someone to be your grantor. That other individual could be a next of kin. It could be a neighbor, a best friend, a coworker, whoever is 18 years or older and able to notarize the trust with you, okay? Remember, they have no power and no control. They have no, what we call no beneficial interest in the trust if it's irrevocable, okay? Now, the next party involved is the trustee. You're gonna go ahead and appoint the trustee. You want to be the trustee. Why? Because the trustee has all the power and all the control. The trustee is the one who's controlling the assets that are inside of the trust. That's the position that you want to be in. You want to be controlling all of the assets that are inside of the trust, okay? The next person that you're going to appoint, it could be person or entity, is the beneficiaries, right? So the beneficiaries are going to be your children, or the beneficiary could be another trust, another entity, an LLC, a nonprofit. It could be anything, right? That you want. So any, next of kin, sibling, spouse, whoever that you want to benefit from the trust and ultimately receive those assets, right? Then the next thing or person that you're going to appoint is a successor, right? That is a successor trustee. That is the individual who's going to be taking over after you. Remember, you're going to have to put yourself in a position to where you're passing the baton. Why? Because the trust is designed to outlive you. So if the trust is designed to outlive you and you're setting it up for 100 years, we know we're most likely not going to live for 100 years. So you're going to have to appoint someone who's going to take over after you. They're going to pick up where you left off. And if anything happens to you, meaning that you expire, you resign because you're tired of operating the trust, or you become incapacitated and your health declines, that person is able to continue operating the trust on a day-to-day basis, okay? So that is a very important position that you're going to have to appoint. Now, let's move on to step 3, which is you actually creating the trust agreement, you guys. Remember, we said this is a contract. So it's very important that you actually set up this contract the right way, that it has the right provisions and bylaws in order for it to hold up in court, just in case somebody tries to take your assets from you, okay? So one of these provisions that we put are spendthrift provisions, you guys. So what are spendthrift provisions? Well, remember, you want to put yourself in the position to where you are controlling the money from the grave. You're the one who's building this legacy, right? And so you want to be able to tell the generations into the future what they can spend the money on, what they cannot spend the money on, and how they can be a good steward of the wealth that you are establishing right now. You're establishing this foundation. And so that's why it's vitally important that you put spendthrift provisions to make sure and ensure that that money that you are now establishing for your trust estate actually lasts generations, right? I hear people talking about this term generational wealth, right? And so if you're intentional about building generational wealth, you need to make sure that it lasts the generations that it needs to, which means that you need spendthrift provisions in there to restrict these beneficiaries from blowing the money, right? And so that's why you're going to have those vital, important rules and regulations of what they can spend it on, what they cannot, right? So let's move on to number 4, you guys, which is you actually notarizing the trust. Remember, this is a contract. You have to legalize this contract. So this contract needs to be signed by 2 individuals. It needs to be signed by the grantor and by the trustee. Those are the 2 parties involved in this contract. but it needs to be signed in front of a notary. The notary is going to then witness those signatures and put their seal on it, which then produces a legal instrument. This then becomes a legalized entity that you can now use and operate the minute that it's notarized. So what is the first thing that you want to do when the trust is notarized? Well, you want to set up that trust fund. You've heard the term trust fund, right? It's just, being thrown all around society, right? And so that is what you're going to be setting up. A trust fund is that actual bank account that is associated with the trust, you guys, okay? So you can actually set up this fund in any institution, any financial institution that offers trust accounts, banks, credit unions, brokerages, okay? And the types of accounts that you can get for the trust are checking accounts, savings accounts, money market accounts, brokerage accounts, cash management accounts, okay? So what you're going to do is you are going to provide two things. You're going to, one, establish a banking relationship with a bank. You're going to provide them with proof that the trust actually exists. The way that we provide proof is through a certificate of trust. That's proof of identity that exist, okay? So you're going to be providing them with that certificate as well as an EIN number. That EIN number is that 9-digit number that's associated with the IRS that you're going to get for banking purposes. So now that you've provided those two things, this bank is now going to go ahead and open up that trust fund that you're then going to fund. You have to fund the account. So generally with these banks, they want $100, $300, $500, depending on the bank, in order for you to open up this account. So you go ahead and open up the account, okay? You document how much you fund the trust with, okay? Documentation is super important when you're operating this type of entity, you guys, okay? So now that you have set up your trust fund account and you have funded it, it's very important to move on to the next step. The next step is number 6, transfer assets into the trust. That is the most important step, you guys. Why? Because your assets are not fully protected unless they are owned by the trust. So that means that that house that you live in right now, that's in your name, that house needs to be transferred into the name of the trust. So what you're going to do is, because a lot of us, we don't know that our property is a part of the public records, right? So what does that mean, right? Well, anybody and everybody can know that you live in that house. All they have to do is go down to the county website, put in your home address, and they get to see who the owner is, their address, their phone number, their email, all kind of contact information is available on the public records on the county's website, right? Or all they have to do is just put in your first and last name, and every single property that you own in that county is readily available on the list for them to be able to see. You don't want that to happen. You want to maintain privacy. So what you want to do is you want to have that property be owned by a trust entity, and that name of the trust is not even associated with you, right? So the way that we do it is once we have set up our trust and it's legalized and we've opened up our bank account and we funded it, right? Now our trust is ready to go to where we can transfer assets in there. The first asset that you want to transfer, you guys, is your home. That is your biggest investment. Let's just be honest, right? And so that is the investment that you actually need to protect the most, right? So what you want to do is remember, when you purchase this house, you received a deed that is representing ownership in that property, right? And so if your name is on the deed or you and your spouse, right? What you have to do is you have to gift that property to the trust. So it'll be listed in the list of assets that are inside of the trust, but then you're going to have to redeed it, right? And so what we do is we use a quitclaim deed. So you're going to quitclaim deed that property right from your name into the name of the trust. You're going to submit it down to the county, right? So you'll go down to the clerk of courts, you'll go down to the county recorder's office, you'll record the new deed, right? Which is the quitclaim deed. And now they're going to receive that new deed, they're going to record it, and now they're going to update the public records to represent and show that the trust is the new owner of that property, right? And so now everyone is going to know and see that the owner of this property is a trust and it's not you, right? And so that is what you want to do, because it'll save you from a lot of things. So let's talk about that, right? What can an actual trust, protect you from, right? So the number one reason why you want to set up a trust is asset protection and privacy, right? So it can protect you from bankruptcies, from divorce, from foreclosures, from heavy taxations, from lawsuits, and from probate, right? So those are just a list of a few things that the trust can actually protect you from. So let's dive into a few of them. The first one I want to discuss is divorce. Why? Because a divorce, like divorce rates are through the roof. That's one. Two, a lot of people don't know this, but a divorce is a transfer of wealth, you guys, unfortunately. Unfortunately, a divorce is between two spouses, and one spouse will end up with half to everything, and the other spouse will end up with half to nothing, right? And so because you have this transfer of wealth during this divorce, right, you want to protect the wealth that you are creating, right? And so a divorce is a lawsuit, right? It is a lawsuit. And what's included in the divorce is all of your personal assets that are in your name, right? So your house that's in your name, your car, your credit cards, your 401k, your pension, your wages, your W-2 income, your business, everything, right, is included in this divorce. Why? Because all of those assets and liabilities are in your personal name, okay? So that's everything that's included in the divorce. So how can a trust actually protect you? Well, if you set up a trust, remember, we said that that trust is a separate entity from you, right? And so if that trust is a separate entity from you, you are not the trust is not you, and you have assets inside of that trust, like a house or a car or 6 figures in the bank or stocks and crypto and all these beautiful things, that trust cannot be pulled into your divorce. So that house that's in that trust, that crypto, that beautiful Bitcoin that you have, right? The stocks, the bonds, everything, none of that stuff can be pulled into the divorce. Why? Because it's not owned by you, it's owned by the trust. You are not the trust is not you. All right, guys, let's talk about heavy taxation, because a lot of us are giving away half of our income to the government, okay? I love the government, but at the end of the day, you work hard for your money, right? You're working 40 hours a week, right? And the first thing that happens is the IRS takes their cut and you get the leftovers. So because that's the situation, and in some of these states like New York and California, they're taking away 50%, they're taking away half, right? So because that's the situation, you want to put yourself in a position to where you have an entity that you can use to reduce your tax liabilities, right? And so with this type of entity, it can actually protect you from inheritance tax, from death tax, right? From estate tax. It can also put you in a position to where, depending on the type of entity, you can qualify to be free from federal income tax. You can also qualify to be tax-free from property taxes, sales taxes, county taxes, city taxes, state taxes, things like that, right? So that's why we use multiple trusts within our structure, so that we're able to reduce our tax liability, right? So for example, one of the trusts that we use within our structure, the IRS allows you to donate up to 60% of your annual gross income, right? So a lot of us, we didn't know that. Why? Because we don't do the research, right? We're too focused on working our 9 to 5, and then we come home and, and just want to relax. We don't have time to research how we can reduce our taxes. And so the IRS will allow you to donate up to 16% of your annual gross income. And so you can actually put that money into your trust organization. So now, if you are donating 60% of your income into your trust organization, then what happens? That means that you're only taxed on 40% of your income. So instead of you being taxed on 100% of your income, you're only taxed on 40% of it, which means that you're going to be saving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on your taxes. Okay, so we'll talk about that in just a moment. So let's move on to lawsuits, you guys, because let's just be honest. We live in the United States of America. The United States of America is a very sue-friendly country. Anybody and everybody wants to sue you. Your neighbor wants to sue you. Your brother wants to sue you. Your employer wants to sue you. Your coworker wants to sue you. Your best friend, your business partner, everybody wants to sue you. Okay, and so you do not want to wait until you're getting sued to protect yourself from a lawsuit, you guys. Okay, so it's vitally important that you know that a trust can actually protect you from a lawsuit, right? So I have a question for you guys, right? Because a lot of us, we are entrepreneurs, we are business owners. And so my question to you, right, is let's just say that you're running a business, right? And let's just say it's an LLC. What does the word LLC stand for, you guys? So you guys can come off mute. Let me know what you think. What does the word LLC stand for?
Limited liability
Yeah, limited liability
company.
Exactly. Okay, thank you so much. So that is absolutely true. So it stands for limited liability company, right? So you hear it actually in the term, right? You hear the word limited liability, right? So what do you think that that means?
You're liable for the other half.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. So that is so true, right? So the company, right, the LLC is liable to a certain degree, right? And if they are not able to fulfill what needs to be fulfilled, then the owner has to do it, right? So the owner is the one, right, that is that then has to take that liability, right? So let's just say that you guys have a company, right? You have an LLC. Let's just say that you have a candle business, right? And you're selling all these beautiful high aroma, nice fancy candles, right? And one of your clients, one of your customers decide that they want to sue you. They said it's the candle started a fire in their house, right? That was the last thing that you was thinking, right? All you wanted to do was make some money selling candles, right? But now there's a fire in somebody's house. And so it's so easy for them to find out that you are the owner of that LLC. All they have to do is go down to the public records, right? So where are the public records for the LLC? They're housed in the Secretary of State, right? So they'll go down to the Secretary of State's office online and they'll do a simple search and they'll put the name of your company, right? And once they put the name of your company, the owner, which is you, the authorized member of that LLC, all of your information comes up. So your full name, your address, your email, all of this information comes up, is readily available on the public records, right? And so now they know, okay, they know who the company is, they know who the owner is, they can start this litigation process to go after you, right? And so let's just say that they do decide to move forward and actually sue you, right? So now your company is going through litigation and they lose, right? Your candle started a fire in their home. So now what happens, you guys? Well, if your LLC loses this judgment, then that means that they have to fulfill it, right? And so if they're unable to fulfill it, then what could happen is the judge could decide to pierce through that corporate veil. So with an LLC, you have this short little veil, right? That is supposed to be your protection. That's that limited liability protection that you have, right? And so the judge decides that they want to pierce through that corporate veil, then that means that they can go after you, the owner of the company. If they decide to go after you, then that means, unfortunately, that they can go after all of your assets. So that means that they can seize all of your assets. They can seize that car, that land, they can seize the house that you have, that you and your children live in, right? They can also garnish your bank account. They can garnish your entire bank account. They can also garnish your W-2 wages, right? And so you don't want that to happen. You need to protect yourself from that type of situation, right? So that's why I say to you guys, when it's that time, what you need to do is you need to protect yourself before you're even getting sued, right? Remember, the US is sue friendly. You are what we call low-hanging fruit because you own everything in your personal name, which is detrimental to you, but you don't even know that, right? And so that's why you're here today in this webinar, so that you can learn how to protect the assets that you've accumulated throughout the years, right? So with that being said, how can a trust protect you from this situation? You just got sued. They took your house away. They garnished your W-2 income, the 6 figures you had in the bank account, everything, right? So the way that you can protect yourself from that situation is, one, by instead of you being the owner of that business, what you want to do is you want to remove yourself as the owner and have the trust be the owner of that business, okay? So I'm going to say it again. Instead of you being the authorized member of your LLC, you're going to remove yourself from the LLC and you're going to have a trust be the owner or the authorized member of your LLC. So that means that, one, you need to set up a trust. 2, you need to do an amendment to the articles of organization with the Secretary of State. 3, you need to remove yourself as the authorized member. 4, you need to add the new authorized members, which is the LLC. Once they process it, they update it, and now the public records show that Sunflower Estate is the owner of that LLC, which is a beautiful thing, because now your client that their house caught on fire, right? Now that they have decided to sue you, what's going to happen is they have to go after the trust, right? And this trust is acting as a holding company. So it's not going to have assets in it. It's only going to hold the LLC, okay? So now they go after the trust, right? And what happens, right? Well, the beautiful thing about the trust is that the trust has 100% liability over the LLC. So they can't come after you personally because you're the trustee. So now they have to go after the trust. So that's why you want your LLC to be owned by a trust, because it's your first layer of protection between you and the company. You don't want to be the owner directly and then them being able to come after you because you have liability. So you want the trust to have the full liability over that company, and they go after the trust, and the trust doesn't have any assets, right? So let's move on to the next one, you guys, okay? So let's see, the next one is probate, you guys. Okay, so let me ask you a question, right? This beautiful house that you live in, right? That you live in there, your kids live in there, you know, you've been living, like, this is your baby, right? Your primary residence where you lay your head at night. That house is in your personal name. If you didn't wake up tomorrow, how do you expect that house to be transferred to the name of your children or your spouse or whoever you want to inherit the house? So that is a question for you guys. Please come off mute and let me know, how do you think this transfer is going to happen?
You have to go to court.
Exactly.
Have to go through probate.
Yes, exactly.
Get a lawyer.
Yep, exactly.
And if you have any collection companies that you owe, they coming for that house too, to get the piece of the pie.
Exactly. So let's talk about it. Thank you so much. So that is exactly right, you guys. So if you have these properties in your name, right, and you didn't wake up tomorrow, that means that your children have to be pulled into the court system in order for a judge. So now you're leaving it up to a judge. That judge doesn't know you. That judge doesn't know your children at all. But you decided to not have your affairs in order and to leave it up to a judge for them to decide if your children get your house. A lot of us, unfortunately, we think it's automatic, right? Let's just be honest. I have this conversation all the time, you guys. You guys think it's automatic. Like, no, inheritance has never been automatic, right? Oh, well, it'll just go straight to my kids. No, that is not the case. A lot of people think, oh, well, I have a will. I put my daughter in the will. No, that is not the case. A will is a legal document where you put, I wish my daughter will get my house. I wish my son will get the money in my bank account, right? So a will is a wish list, you guys. A will cannot own anything. A trust can. So let me break down this probate process so that you know and understand the situation or the position that you will be putting your family in if anything were to happen to you. So, right, let's just say that you decided that a will was good enough, right? Even though a will ends up in probate. So you had a will, right, where you said that you wanted your kids to have your assets. You have a house, you have a car, right? You got $500,000 in the bank, right? And then you have some liabilities, right? You have student loan debt, credit card debt, right? So with this entire, situation, right? You didn't wake up tomorrow. So now what happens, right? Well, your children, they're grieving, right? And so instead of them being able to grieve in peace, now they're pulled into the court system, which is probate court, and they're going to have to fight to keep mom and dad's house, and they're probably going to have to fight each other. We've seen it, right? So what happens is, a lot of us, we don't even know this, but you're going to end up with an estate anyways. So either you're going to create the estate now while you're living, or you're going to let the state of Texas create the estate when you die. So when you die, the state that you're a resident in, they create an estate for you. Then they transfer all of your assets into that estate. So your house, the money in the bank, the car, the stocks, the bonds, everything gets transferred into the estate. Now the estate needs to be represented in probate court. It needs to be represented by a probate attorney. So the first thing that the probate judge does is they pay off your liabilities. So you racked up some medical bills, right? The ICU want to charge you $100,000. If you ended up in a nursing home, they want to charge you $200,000, right? But then you had credit card bills, you had student loans, you had all of these things, right? So the first thing that the judge does is start pulling out money to pay off Medicare, Medicaid, every credit card company you ever had, all of this stuff. So now the money that's in your estate starts to dwindle. And then what happens? After the judge pays off all of your liability, all of your debt, then the probate attorney needs to get paid. They have fees. And then the probate court has fees. After everyone has taken from your estate whatever's left over, if there's anything that's left over, we've seen it to where there's nothing that's left over. We've seen it to where the judge decides that they have to sell your house in order to pay off Medicaid. If there's anything left over, your children get the leftovers. So that is them getting their inheritance. And to be honest with you, our children are losing their inheritance. Why? Because we don't have our affairs in order. Why? Lack of knowledge. because we didn't know that the state of Georgia is going to set up an estate for us. We didn't know that. Because we never heard the word probate before. Because we automatically assumed. I only have one son. Everything's going to go to my son. No. Right? And so if you don't have your affairs in order, you're doing your family a disservice, and they are going to lose half, 75%, 80, 90, or all of their inheritance, right? Your house, sometimes that we've seen, is literally being auctioned at the county steps. Why? Because it was owned by you and you no longer exist. And you didn't have your affairs in order. So now, let's just say that you do have your affairs in order. Let's just say that you decided to create an estate while you're living. So you went and set up a trust. Remember, your trust can own all of your assets. So now your trust owns your house, your trust owns your car, your trust has a trust fund bank account with the $500,000 that you have saved up, right? And you didn't wake up tomorrow. Well, guess what? Guess what happens? A trust is the only way for you to avoid probate. Probate is inevitable. We're all going to go through probate unless we have a trust. The trust is the only way to avoid probate. That's one. So if you didn't wake up tomorrow and you're the trustee, guess what? Your successor takes over. They pick up where you left off. And now your children get to grieve properly. Why? Because everything's going to remain intact. The house is going to remain in the name of the trust. The car is going to remain in the name of the trust. The bank account with $500,000 is going to remain in the name of the trust. There's no transfer that needs to happen. Your successor takes over. They pick up where you left off. They start operating the trust the same day that you transition. And that debt that you had, the medical bills, that's at the end of your life. Let's just be real. You have medical bills at the end of your life, right? Also, the death tax from the IRS, the IRS taxes you when you die. I'm sorry. The credit card bills, the student loan bills, all of that debt dies with you. Because all of that debt was in your personal name, and those creditors cannot come after your trust estate. That is the position that you want to be in. You want to avoid probate entirely. You want your children to receive their entire inheritance and not half or peanuts. So I empower you to get your affairs in order. Because you already know you want your kids to inherit what you have. So with that being said, let's continue on. I got two or three more slides and we're going to wrap it up, you guys. So this is the wealth building formula, you guys. This is what I want to go through with you here. Because like I said, a lot of us, we are throwing around this term generational wealth. But there are certain tools that you need in order to actually create generational wealth, right? So what does this look like? Well, I have the wealth building formula with you here, and I have three pillars, you guys: structure, credit, and invest. So with structure, let's go through that. It's highly important for you guys to be structured properly. If you're not structured properly, you want to get restructured right away. What you want is to have trust within your structure, and you want to have multiple trusts within your structure. You do not want to put all of your eggs in one basket, which means you don't want to put all of your assets in one trust. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. These trusts are specialized for different things. And you want to treat it appropriately to the nature of that trust. So these are the 3 trusts that I recommend. I recommend a business trust for individuals who are entrepreneurs, business owners, or investors. I recommend a private family trust in order for you to hold all of your private assets that has nothing to do with business or investments. And I recommend a nonprofit tax-exempt trust. Within your structure, you need to have a for-profit arm or entity and a nonprofit arm or entity. That's the rules to the game. Why? Because you want to be able to benefit from both spectrums. So let's talk about the business trust, you guys, okay? So with the business trust, how are we going to actually utilize this trust? There's 2 ways for you to utilize this trust. The first way is you're going to utilize it as a holding company, which means that it's going to be non-operational. So that means that it's not going to be offering products or services out here in society. The sole purpose of a business trust that you're using as a holding company is to hold the asset. The asset is your business, right? Which is your LLC or your corporation, whatever you've been running for the last couple of years. The business trust is going to own that entity and manage that entity and be liable for that entity. The other way that you can use a business trust is in the fashion of an operational way, which is for you to actually operate a business out of this type of entity. So that means that instead of you going down to the Secretary of State's website and establishing a new LLC, you can establish a business trust. Why? Because with an LLC, right, it has limitations. What are the limitations? One is that you can only use that LLC in the state that you actually established it in. A lot of people think that, oh, I'm going to establish an LLC in Georgia and I can use it in all 50 states. No way. I'm going to let you think that. But in all actuality, you have to register that LLC in every state that you intend on doing business as a foreign entity. So that's one of the limitations. 2, the state can shut you down at any point in time. You want to find out? Go ahead and don't do your annual report. You won't have a business that you can operate. And then 3, it's a public entity, you guys, okay? It's a public entity. It's what we call a statutory entity. All right? So with that being said, with a business trust is superior to an LLC, right? 1, you can operate it in the entire nation. 2, is private. 3, it doesn't have to be renewed every single year. 4, it's not regulated by the state, right? You don't have those restrictions, okay? So that's how you can utilize a business trust in those 2 different types of ways. So let's just say that you are using it as a holding company and it owns your LLC, right? You're going to continue to run your LLC the way you've been running it for the last 10 years. The only thing that's going to change is that the new owner is a business trust and it's not you. But everything remains intact. You have your employees, you have your products, you have your services, your bank account, everything remains intact. The LLC is a pass-through entity. So the money that you're getting from that LLC, right, it can then be passed through to the business trust, which is a beautiful thing. So let's just say it's 100,000, right? 100,000 is then being passed through to the business trust. The thing that I love about the trust the most is that you spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers, right? And it's very different from us as employees. Us as employees, we're taxed first and then we get the leftovers. So if you want to start building wealth efficiently and effectively, there's going to have to be a mindset shift to where you do things differently. to where you incorporate different types of entities so that you can actually save the money and allocate it somewhere else. So with that being said, 100,000 comes into your business trust organization. With this type of organization, you're taxed anywhere between 10% upwards of 39%. But one beautiful thing about the trust, besides what I just mentioned, is that you can actually distribute the funds to the beneficiary so that the beneficiary can pay the taxes. So if you had $100,000 that came into that business trust, right? Remember, you spend the money first, you're taxed on the leftovers. So what are your operating expenses, right? What does it cost in order for you to operate this organization? Let's just say it costs $30,000 annually. So that means that you get to do a tax deduction for $30,000, and now you're going to be taxed on $70,000. So you will have to pay taxes on that $70,000. Or what you can do is you can distribute that $70,000 to the beneficiary. So what we do is we make the beneficiary of our business trust our family trust. And now that we do that, that $70,000 then goes straight into the family trust. And the business trust now has a 0% tax liability. And now it's up to the family trust to pay taxes on that $70,000. So now we go down to the family trust, right? So the family trust is to actually run your family. That's where you're going to put all your personal assets, like your furniture, your crypto, your stocks, your bonds, your insurance policies, your primary residence where you live, your car, whatever assets that you have, you're going to put in the private family trust. So now what does it cost in order to operate your family trust? Right? Well, the family trust has a lot of expenses, right? It has mortgage, it has taxes, like property taxes, it has insurance premiums, it has utilities for the house, it has gasoline, all kind of stuff. So now all of that is deductible, right? So now let's just say out of the 70,000, your operating expenses are 60. So now you deduct 60,000 and you have to pay taxes on the $10,000 that's left. So now you have to pay 10% on that 10,000, which is a very, very, very small amount. So you've reduced your tax liability by using these different types of entities, right? Another thing that you can do is you can donate to your tax exempt trust. It's a nonprofit tax exempt trust, right? So let's just say that that $10,000 that you were supposed to pay, you donated it to your tax exempt trust. Now your family trust has a 0% tax liability. And now that money went to your tax exempt trust, and guess what? It's tax exempt. It doesn't have to, you don't have to report that donation to the IRS, which means that you do not have to file federal income tax. So let's talk about this type of entity. Well, what do we call this type of entity? It's labeled as a ministry trust. It's labeled as a faith-based organization. It's labeled as a church. It's labeled as what we call a 508c1a designated trust. It's a nonprofit, it's tax exempt. So how is this type of entity tax exempt? Well, there's a beautiful thing in America, right, where we call it a separation between church and state. So that means that the government cannot interfere with this type of entity if it's operating like a church or a ministry or a FBO. Which means that it's a mandatory exception to not having to file for a 501c3. Every single nonprofit has to file for a 501c3. But if you are running your organization like a faith-based organization, then you do not have to go down the 501c3 route. You are automatically exempt from federal taxes. You could also be exempt from state taxes, city taxes, county taxes, sales taxes, property taxes. So think about a church, right? A church has land, right? They don't pay property taxes, right? They don't pay income taxes on the donations, right? So you want to incorporate some type of entity very similar to that, where you are able to, you know, have your charitable or philanthropic endeavors, or it doesn't even have to be religious based, it could also be educational. And this is the entity that I told you that the IRS will allow you to donate up to 60% of your W-2 income. Look it up. Go on their website. So if the IRS is allowing you to donate up to 60% of your income, now that means that if you made $100,000 for 2024, right? 60,000 went to your trust. The other 40,000, you're going to be taxed on the 40,000 instead of the whole 100,000. You're going to be saving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on taxes. What are you going to do with all of that extra money that you're saving? You're going to allocate it somewhere else to an investment, right? So that means now you can start to build wealth more efficiently. You can start to be more effective because you get to allocate your funds where it can then grow. It can then compound. You can earn dividends, things of that nature. So anyways, let's move on to the next one, you guys, credit, okay? I'm trying to wrap it up for you guys. Let's land this plane. So with credit, I just want you to know that you need to put yourself in a position to where you're using OPM. Please do not think that you're going to be building generational wealth by using only your W-2 income. You have to put yourself in a position to where you're using other people's money. Which is who? The bank. The bank is using you. The bank is leveraging you. Every time that your paycheck is direct deposited into the bank, they're pimping it out. They're lending it out for mortgages, for credit cards, for student loans, for car loans, all kind of stuff. And they're literally giving you 0.00 nothing %. So you need to also leverage them. You need to also get money from the bank. And the way that you're going to do that is by building business credit. Please do not only leverage your personal credit. That's only one credit profile and it's limited. They're literally going to only give you a credit card for $10,000. But if you have a business, if you have an EIN number, if you have a credit profile with substantial trade lines, they're going to give you lines of credit and credit card limits for $50,000, $100,000. That's where you're now putting yourself in a position to where you can leverage those funds, allocate them into other investments that are going to make you more money. So what I want you to know from this section is that you can actually set up business credit with your business trust. And with that being said, the reason why you can do that is because your business trust is going to get an EIN. You can build credit off of an EIN, just like an LLC and a corporation can build credit off of an EIN. So with that being said, I need you to know that this is a part of your blueprint, using other people's money. Let's move on to the next one, which is invest, you guys. So these are my two favorite assets. The first one is the Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. The second one is real estate. You got your tangible assets, you got your liquid assets. Let's talk about the index universal life insurance policy. Why? Because a lot of people think that insurance is supposed to be utilized when they are dead. But in actuality, insurance is supposed to be utilized when they are living. Insurance has so many living benefits, you guys. And you want to incorporate this within your structure. And I'll teach you about that in the next slide. So let's just talk about this type of policy really quick. Remember, I told you it's liquid. 2, it's tax-free. Anything that's tax-free, you need to jump on it, right? So that means that you get to grow money inside of this vehicle without being taxed. Remember, we're reducing our taxation. So we want to use vehicles like this, like IUL policies in real estate. So it's tax-free. The next thing is that it has a death benefit associated with it. So you're insuring your life. I'm insuring my life, right? And if I transition, then guess what? That death benefit that's associated with it is paid out. But then it also has another bucket, which is what we call cash value. So that means that those premiums that you're paying into your policy every single month or quarterly or annually, a portion of it, a very large chunk of it, like 80% or more, is going into cash value. You have hard liquid cash inside of this policy. But then there's something on top of that, which I absolutely love, which is you get the opportunity to build compound interest off of that cash value. What do I mean by that? Well, remember, you see the term index in the words, in the title, index universal life. So what is an index, you guys? An index is referring to an indice in the stock market. The stock market has many different indices. It has the Dow Jones, it has the NASDAQ, and it has the S&P 500. The S&P 500 stands for Standard & Poor's 500, which tracks the top 500 companies in this country. That means your Apple, your Facebook, your Amazon, your Google, right? So if your policy, what they do is the carrier is not investing your cash value into the stock market. Why? The stock market is risky, right? Sometimes it can be volatile. So your money is not directly invested. What happens is the carrier is going to match what the index does. So if the S&P 500 is doing 9%, then the carrier is going to match that and give you 9% returns on your cash value. That is a beautiful thing. It's also risk-free. Why? Because if the stock market crashes, you just either get 0, or if you want, you can get 1%, depending on how you structure your policy, which is a beautiful thing. So with this type of policy, what you want is the way that you incorporate it with the trust is you're going to have the trust be the owner of your life insurance policy. You're going to be the insured, so we're insuring your life. The trust is going to be the payer of the premiums, which becomes tax deductible. And the trust is going to be the beneficiary. So if anything happens to you, guess what? That money goes to the trust, which is what you want, right? And you want to put yourself in a position to where you're using this type of policy and you get to pay yourself first. Because a lot of us, we are paying ourselves last, you guys, and we don't even know it. We don't even know it. So let me share with you the concept of paying yourself first. Now, what I'm about to share with you takes time. This is not an overnight thing. It takes time for you to build up to this part, to this point, okay? So when it comes to you paying yourself first, right? Let's just say that you're a W-2 employee. If you are a W-2 employee, right? What is the first thing that happens? Like, let's just say it's Friday, it's payday. The first thing that happens when you get paid is the IRS takes their cut. Today is payday. You haven't even gotten your direct deposit yet. The IRS takes their cut. Then who else takes their cut? Right? Medicaid, Social Security, right? And then you do your 401k contributions. So in actuality, before you even receive your paycheck, 4 different organizations have taken a piece of your money, of your paycheck. They have been paid first. The IRS, Medicare, Social Security, 401k contributions. Now that those 4 organizations have taken their portion of your paycheck, then you get direct deposited into Bank of America, Wells Fargo, right? Your paycheck. So now your paycheck goes straight into Wells Fargo. So now you've paid Wells Fargo, right? Because what did we say earlier? The bank is leveraging you guys. That money that you have in there is not really there, right? They are lending it out and they're making 20%, 30%, 15% interest. And how much are you getting? 0.000001, right? So now your direct deposit has gone into the bank, right? And a lot of people think that the banks, they're getting rich off of giving these loans, but in actuality, the bank's #1 investment is life insurance policies. It's called BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. Look it up. If the bank's #1 life insurance, if their #1 asset is life insurance, do you think that your #1 asset should also be life insurance? Do what the banks do. With that being said, right? So now that your funds are direct deposited into your bank account, what is the first thing that you do? The first thing that you do is you start paying bills. You start paying your mortgage, your rent, groceries, gasoline, light bill, water bill, cable bill, internet bill, everything. You start paying everything. And guess what? That paycheck starts dwindling down, 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 down to almost nothing. Right? So what does that mean? That means that you literally just paid all of these organizations first. You paid the mortgage company first. You paid the utility company first. You paid all of these organizations first before you even seen $1 for yourself. That is the definition of the rat race, because you're always going to be in this vicious cycle. So you need to have a mindset shift in order to remove yourself from this vicious cycle, which means that you have to change. You have to do things differently in order for things to change. So what is it that you have to do? You have to pay yourself first in order before you pay off all of these organizations. So let's just say that you just got paid today and it's $5,000, right? So now this $5,000 comes straight into your paycheck, right? Your paycheck comes straight into your direct deposit. Instead of you paying all of these organizations first, what you want to do is you want to funnel that money into your life insurance policy. Because now what's going to happen is, remember that money, majority of it is going to go into cash value. And the life insurance company is going to give you compound interest off of that money. So you're going to earn 9% off of that $5,000 that you just funneled in there. But you need to be able to pay your bills. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out a loan from the life insurance company, right? So your $5,000 is still sitting inside of your life insurance, earning compound interest. And then you're going to borrow whatever's available. So let's just say it's $4,700 that's available for you to borrow. You're going to borrow $4,700. They're going to direct deposit it back into your bank account so that you can then be able to pay your bills. It takes time to build up to this type of scenario, this type of situation, this type of livelihood, but it's absolutely possible. Why? Because you want to put yourself in a position to where you pay yourself first versus last. Why? Because if you pay everybody else first, you end up with $700 after you paid off all your bills. That is how you're going to continue to live paycheck to paycheck, because you are working for the money. When in actuality, you need to have the money working for more money. In that particular situation, when you pay everybody else first, you only have $700 left that you can then put into your IUL policy that you can then earn 9% off of $700. So like I said, it takes a mindset shift and for you to do things differently. This is not something you can do overnight. This is going to take time. Once you have your policy and you built up enough cushion inside of your policy, you can then implement this model. Now, let's move on to real estate, because I absolutely love real estate. Remember, I told you at the beginning of this call, I am a real estate investor. I've been investing in real estate since 2015. So it is my favorite asset, right? So with real estate, you guys, what you want to do is you want to put the trust estate in a position to where it can sustain itself. So if you're going to do that, right, the way that you need to do that is by acquiring assets for the trust estate. So remember, you got the IULs, you got the real estate. One thing that I love about a trust is that it can own a mortgage, a home equity line of credit, or a home equity line of credit, right? So a trust can get a mortgage, right? So the types of mortgages that we get are DSCR loans, right? Debt service coverage ratio loans. Those are investment loans for entities, right? And so those are for investment properties. With these investment properties, what you can do is you can qualify for up to 80% of the purchase price, which is absolutely lovely. So if you're getting 80% of the purchase price, right, then you need to come up with a down payment. You need to come up with 20% down. So how are you going to find 20% down, right? Well, remember, we said OPM, use other people's money, primarily the bank's money. The bank is using your money, you need to use their money, okay? So what you're going to do is, remember we said that you can build credit off of your business trust. So what you're going to do is you are then going to acquire these credit cards. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be able to then be able to leverage those credit cards and pull from those credit cards, okay? So what's going to happen is, let's just say you have a line of credit of $50,000. So if you have a line of credit of $50,000, then what you want to do is you want to strip that credit card, right? You want to strip that credit card for the $50,000 so that you're being able to utilize it for a down payment for real estate. Okay, so now that you strip that credit card, the first thing that you want to do with it before you even use it for a down payment is you want to put it somewhere else. You want to put it in your index universal life insurance policy. So now your cash value went up by $50,000, you guys. And now it's going to be earning whatever the market is doing. If the market is doing 8%, you're going to earn 8%. If it's doing 9%, you're going to earn 9%. If it's doing 10%, you're going to do 10%, right? So now you just funnel that money into your IUL policy. You're going to borrow it back out. Your $50,000 is still sitting inside of your cash value earning compound interest. You are then going to borrow whatever the insurance carrier is going to lend you. Let's just say it's $4,800, $4,800, right? $48,500. So now you're borrowing those funds out and you're going to be able to use it for the real estate. You're going to be able to use it for the down payment. Okay. So what's going to happen is now that you borrow those funds out, they're going to do a direct deposit back into your bank account. And now you're going to use it to acquire the property. So you've got a DSCR loan for 80% and you got your down payment money from the credit card, right? So now you just acquired this real estate, zero down, you guys. You just put 0% down into this real estate, right? Into acquiring this investment property, okay? And that loan that you got from the insurance company, right? Remember I told you it came from their reserves. It came from their bank account. That loan doesn't have to be paid back. Why? Because it is automatically going to be deducted from your death benefit, you guys. You do not have to be, you don't have to pay these loans back. Okay, so now you acquire the real estate zero down. That's what you want to do. A rinse and repeat method, you guys, so that you can put yourself in a position to where you're acquiring real estate for the trust zero down, you guys, okay? And so you have to qualify for these types of mortgages. So you're going to be showing bank statements and tax returns, okay? All right, so let's continue on. So how to actually transfer wealth, you guys. You need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say it again because it's so profound. You need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is how we define stewardship, you guys. Stewardship is when you are controlling and managing your assets and you're being a good steward of the wealth that you're actually creating versus how you're operating now. So how you're operating now is an ownership, you guys, meaning that you're so proud to be the owner of this house. You're so proud to be the owner of that bank account with $500,000 in it, right? But you have to understand that that house is going to outlive you, that that bank account is going to outlive you. So if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. So in actuality, what you really truly wanted was control over that house while you were living. That is what you wanted. And you can obtain that through a trust, you guys. You're going to have the trust be the owner of the policy, of the actual property, which is what you want. And you are going to be the trustee of the trust. So how do you actually transfer your wealth? Because that is something that I know you did not ask yourself. And I need you to start asking yourself these hard questions. Look yourself in the mirror and say, how am I going to protect these assets? How am I going to protect this money? How am I going to grow this money? How am I going to transfer the wealth that I'm working so hard for? I'm working 40 years. 40 hours a week for 40 years. How am I going to transfer this wealth? Not, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it. That I'll get to it, that I'll cross that bridge, it never happens. So it's important that you get your affairs in order now, today, immediately, ASAP. So how do you actually transfer your wealth? Well, What we use is trust certificate units. So just like how you have stock certificates that represent ownership in a company, you have trust certificate units, aka TCUs, that represent beneficial interest in a trust. Why? Because a trust cannot be owned by anyone, but the trust certificate unit holders, which are the beneficiaries, can benefit. They can have beneficial interests. So let's just say that you have 4 children and your trust that you just set up has 100 trust certificate units. The 100 trust certificates are going to represent 100% of beneficial interest of this trust. You have 4 kids, you want to distribute those TCUs equally. You get 25 TCUs, you get 25 TCUs, you get 25 TCUs, you get 25 TCUs. So now each of the 4 beneficiaries have 25 TCUs each, which represents that they have 25% beneficial interest. If the trust organization is worth $1 million, that means that that one beneficiary has 25%, which is equivalent to $250,000 of beneficial interest in this trust. That is how you want to transfer your wealth. That is how you're going to ensure that your children receive their inheritance and that they don't have to fight each other in probate court. You think they love each other now, but just watch them when you're dead and gone. They're going to act like they was never family. Why? Because you didn't have the proper paperwork in order to efficiently transfer your wealth. Why are you working so hard? We are so focused on making money, making money, making money, but you're not protecting money, protecting money, protecting money, and you don't know how you're going to transfer it. All right, guys, let's start to land this plane. Now, one seed that I want to plant is the seed of preservation. If you are serious about building generational wealth, if you truly want the wealth to last generations, then there's 2 tools that you need. Because a lot of us, I see it every single day. We're throwing around the terms generational wealth, generational wealth, generational wealth, but we don't have the tools. How dare you say that you're building generational wealth, but you don't have the tools? How many times have you seen it out here in society on the news to where you have celebrities, actors, actresses, famous families, athletes, to where they come into all this wealth and they blow it in their lifetime, or that wealth doesn't even last the first or second generation? We see it all the time. Why? Why is it that we see that? Because they didn't have the tools. There's 2 tools that you need, you guys. The first one is a trust. The second one is the life insurance policies. So let's talk about it. One second. Now, those are the tools that you need in order to ensure that your wealth lasts many, many generations. And this is the way that it works. Your trust has a lot of assets. Your trust has a house. Your trust has a car. Your trust has a bank account with cash money. So the trust has insurance for those assets. The trust has homeowners insurance. The trust has automobile insurance. The trust has FDIC insurance. So the trust insures all of its assets. Now, the trust also has what we call human assets, human capital, which is you and the beneficiaries. You have to understand, you are the trustee of the trust. You are the person who's authorized to sign on behalf of the trust. You are the most important person in the trust organization. You're running the show. If anything were to happen to you, the trust is going to be devastated. The trust is going to be suffering a loss. The trust then needs to be compensated for that loss. So that's why the trust is going to ensure the trustees, as well as all of the beneficiaries, as well as all of the future beneficiaries. Because if anything happens to you, and you have a $2 million death benefit on that insurance policy, that death benefit goes straight to the trust. And now the trust is replenished, which is what you want. That is going to ensure that the wealth that you're creating today is going to be preserved for generations and generations and generations. Why? Because like I said, the trust is going to take out a policy on the trustee, any co-trustees, any current beneficiaries, and any future beneficiaries. Those beneficiaries or those future beneficiaries, right? That's what we call trust fund babies. We need to normalize trust fund babies in our community. Being a trust fund baby is an absolute beautiful thing. Why? What happens? Well, the minute that a beneficiary is born into the trust estate, the trust takes out an insurance policy on that baby. And now the trust is paying the premiums for that trust fund baby, right? So let's just say it's $100 a month. The trust is now paying $100 a month into this premium, okay? So what's going to happen is now that trust fund baby is going to grow up. That trust fund baby, fast forward into the future, is now 18 years old. And they are going off to college. They got room and board, books, tuition. They need a new car, all of the to-dos. So normally what can happen is that trust fund baby can go down to the dealership and can buy a car for $30,000, get a loan, and start paying the dealership $1,000 a month. Or what they can do is they can actually go to the trust and request a loan from the trust. So because they are a beneficiary to the trust estate, they can receive loans and they can give loans to the trust. So what's going to happen is that trustee is going to go ahead and be able to give that beneficiary a check. They're going to write a check for whatever they need. So they need the 30,000, right? So they're going to write a check for the 30,000 and hand it to the beneficiary. And now the beneficiary gets to go and buy that car cash. And now instead of the beneficiary going and paying $1,000 to the dealership, now what they're going to do is they're going to go and pay $300 a month to the trust organization. So now the trust is getting a little bit of interest plus that money back, which is a beautiful thing. But let's just say, you know, a year into the future, that beneficiary decides that they don't want to pay the trust organization anymore. So now they default on the loan. So what is going to happen is nothing, because it was a risk-free loan, you guys. So because this was a risk-free loan, the money did not come from the trust fund. The money actually came from the trust fund baby's life insurance policy. Hold on for me 1 second, you guys.
Worst apartment in the region. I plan to leave pretty soon. The state of Maryland says it's bad. I'm John Dome, and more news in 30 seconds.
The Letdown Imports construction sale is nearing an end, so the time is now. If you're looking for a pre-owned BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, or Range Rover, all for thousands below MSRP, space is limited, and there are over 100 certified pre-owned luxury vehicles at the lowest prices.
All right, you guys, so that was a risk-free loan because the money came from the trust fund baby's policy. So what the trustee did was they went ahead and requested a loan from the carrier. And they requested a loan for the 30,000. That 30,000 was then direct deposited into the trust fund. And then the trustee issued out a check for the 30,000 to the trust fund baby. So that's what happened. So because it was a risk-free loan, that means that that money, since it originated from the carrier and it was a loan, it's going to be deducted from their death benefit. So when that trust fund baby transitions, right, that death benefit of $10 million is going to go straight into the trust fund. The trust is going to be replenished, and that loan is going to be suffice, right? It's going to be fulfilled. So that is the position that you want to put yourself in, that you want to put your family in, to ensure that the wealth that you're creating today, the money that you're making today, that it, one, multiplies, but two, that it's actually preserved so that it actually lasts 5, 6, 7 generations into the future. And the only way that that's going to happen is if you have the tools. The tools that you need, like I said, is a trust, estate, and for the trust to own the life insurance policies. Now, these are the books that I recommend. What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really, really, really good book that teaches you exactly what I'm telling you about how to marry the trust and the life insurance policies. The next book is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. It's a really good book teaching you about trusteeship. The next one is Family Wealth, which teaches you guys how to run your family like a business. That is what you need to be doing. You need to have family meetings. You are the CEO of your family. Your spouse is the CEO, the CFO of your family. So that is what we call a family office, and you will learn that in that book. And the last one is the Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you guys about the different types of trust, you guys, okay? So what I want to do is I want to show you a quick video of a trustee that took action on the information that I shared today.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and, you know, they're offering trust these days. And, you know, I guess that's the big thing, you know, don't own anything, control everything, that kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. Things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
All right, guys, so take action on the information that I shared with you guys tonight, because it could be your new form of doing business, you guys, okay? It can actually solve a lot of your problems, which deals with asset protection, right? Protecting that asset, which deals with growing your money, reducing your taxes, preserving your wealth, transferring your wealth, right? Making sure that all of these things are properly structured so that you can build this wealth efficiently, so that you can build it effectively, right? And you want to treat this like a big business. You want to treat this like a Google, Amazon, or Facebook. You don't want to treat this like a small mom and pop shop. This is not what that is, right? So I empower you guys to have your affairs in order, because you guys are the generational curse breakers in your family. Now it's time to do things differently. Now it's time to break those chains. Now it's time to, instead of instilling in your children that they have to work for another company, you're going to instill in your children that they have to be the trustee of the trust organization. You're going to change the trajectory of your children's lives. That is you building generational wealth. That is you leaving a legacy, you guys. And that is what I empower you guys to do. So with that being said, let's work together, right? So I do have a program, you guys, where you can learn all of this information very thoroughly. There's only so much that I can teach you in the little 2 hours that we were together. So what I want to do is I want to actually teach you guys about the 3 trusts that I mentioned: the business trust, the family trust, and the nonprofit. Right? So you have 3 options here. The first option is do it yourself. That is for my individuals who are independent learners, and they can go through a video training and be able to step-by-step set up their trust organization, right? In a minute, I will show you what one of the trusts look like, right? And so what you can do is you can customize it for your business, customize it for your family, customize it for the nonprofit that you want to operate, right? So with the do-it-yourself, it is a course. It has 43 video modules. You have the 3 templates for the business trust. You do have lifetime access, and you get all the resources and ebooks that you need. So the books that I mentioned, you get those books in electronic version. Some of those books cost over $800. Try to buy it on Amazon, right? And so the resources that you need is we provide you with the template so that you can efficiently pay your taxes, so that you can open up a bank account, so that you can transfer your house into a trust, so that you can transfer your cars into the trust, right? All of the assets, everything that you need, right? Dealing with the insurance policies and everything. We also have a private Facebook community, right? So our community is over 700 trustees and is growing stronger than ever, right? And so you have access to these trustees. So we're building a community where you get to chat with them and talk to them, right? And these individuals have been in the program for years. They already built credit. They have already acquired property and houses and apartment buildings, right? So you get to talk to them, right? And then we also have a Telegram chat. Inside of the Telegram chat, we're chatting back and forth. We're always giving announcements on the various different things that we're doing. So sometimes we have live meetings. Sometimes we have master classes and Q&A sessions, right? And so the course is only $997, you guys. The second option is Done With You. That is where we do it in a workshop setting, you guys. So it's 5 Zoom calls, and it's Monday through Friday. From 11 in the morning to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So we're going to meet 3 hours per day to knock it out, to get it done. Me and my team are going to hold you accountable. We're going to hold your hand through this entire process and give you the assistance that you need. So on Monday, we focused on setting up the business trust together. I break down every single paragraph of that trust. That trust is 52 pages, you guys. And then we dive into Q&A, which is the best part of the workshop, because you're in an environment with other people and they're asking questions that you didn't even know you wanted to know. So you end up learning more. Tuesday, we focus on setting up the family trust. Wednesday, we focus on the nonprofit trust. And then I show you guys how to become ordained ministers if that's what you want to do. Thursday, we focus on applying for EINs with the IRS, doing promissory notes so that you can document how much you're going to fund the trust with. And then we have an industry expert with over 10 years of experience that's going to come in and teach you how to build business credit and get business funding for the trust so that you can leverage OPM, other people's money. And then on Friday, we focus on transferring assets. So I show you guys how to fill out a quick claim deed so that you can deed over your property from your personal name into the name of the trust, and how to submit it with the clerk of courts, county recorder's office. Then we go through filling out a bill of sale so that you can submit it with the DMV if you want to put your car into the trust. Then we go through a business purchase agreement so that you guys can remove yourself from having the liability of your LLC, and you can put that business into the business trust. And then the last thing that we show you is we have an industry expert with over 14 years of experience that comes in and teaches you guys how to build these cash value life insurance policies, how to use it to eliminate debt, how to build wealth with it, and how to marry it with your trust so that your trust is the owner, payer, and beneficiary of the policy. So with the Done With You, you still get access to the course, but then you also get lifetime access to the workshops. So we do the workshops every 4 weeks. So every 4 weeks, you can attend the workshops, right? So the workshops is only $2,500. And the last option is do it one-on-one. For do it one-on-one is private sessions, you guys. So it's private sessions with me. It's just me and you on Zoom. And we go through setting up all 3 of your trusts, right? We print it out, get it notarized, get it shipped to you. You get individualized support. You still get access to the workshops and the courses and the Facebook community and Telegram chat. But then you get that sense of security to know that your trust was set up the right way. And then we really focus on acquiring assets. So the private sessions are only 10,000. So you want to just choose whichever option best fits you and your budget, okay? So with that being said, all you have to do is go to wealthytrustee.com. And what I want to do is for the individuals that are on this call, I will offer you guys 20% off, okay? Just as a token of my appreciation for you guys staying on for the whole 2 hours. So you can go to the website, wealthytrustee.com, and you can use the discount code TRUST20, okay, for the next 48 hours, and you can get 20% off the price that you see on the screen. So, here is my contact information. If you guys have any questions, you can call the business phone line. You can visit the website. You can send me an email, and you can also visit us on social media. What I want to do now is I want to show you what a trust looks like, as well as what the course looks like, and we can open up the floor for Q&A. So this is what the actual course looks like. All right, so remember I told you it's 43 lessons. So the first couple of lessons is under trust entity. You learn what is a trust, who's the grantor, the trustee, the beneficiaries, the successors, the protectors, the benefits of the trust, the different types of trust. Then you learn about tax-exempt trust. So we go through the declarations, the articles, the bylaws, how to apply for the EIN. Then you learn about the family trust, and we go through the indenture and the bylaws. Then we go through the business trust. Then you learn about tax strategies. So how to apply for tax exemption, how to determine what your distributable net income is, things of that nature. And then we go through asset protection. So the first thing you want to do is take an inventory of your asset. So you know which ones is going to stay inside the trust and which ones are going to be transferred or left outside of the trust. Then you're going to learn how to create a bank account, brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your policies, your businesses, and how to do board meetings for your trust. There's so many people that are out here running businesses and not doing board meetings for their businesses or meetings for their businesses. You're not running your business the right way. So we teach you how to actually operate your trust the right way. The next thing is wealth creation, where we teach you how to get OPM by building business credit for the business trust. We teach you about different investments with the stock market and how to do infinite banking with the insurance policies. We teach you about establishing a legacy crest for your trust, and then you get all the resources and ebooks that you need, okay, you guys? So let me show you what an actual trust looks like. So this is an example of what a trust template looks like, okay, you guys? So everything that you see in red is what you're going to be customizing for the actual trust, okay? So this is what I'm telling you, that in the workshop or in the course, I break down every single paragraph of these trusts so that you guys can understand the contents of the trust, so that you guys can actually feel empowered to know that you can operate your trust organization and you can operate as a trustee. So with that being said, thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate it. I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A so that I can answer any and all questions that you might have. So I see Kenya has a question. Hey, Kenya. Kenya, do you have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was having issue unmuting myself. For those that are here in the meeting, all I could say is this works. I already established my ministry and my family trust. What I'm still having a little bit of difficulty is transferring my my assets. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, once you transfer a property into the trust, are you able to take any equity out of it?
Yes, you can take out equity. So you can get either a home equity line of credit, or you can get like a second mortgage. So there's only a few ways for you to take out or access the equity. So I would definitely tell you the first way you want to go is through the HELOC, right? Home equity line of credit. So that's a line of credit for the equity that you have, but they're going to base it off of an appraisal. And then usually they only go up to 80%, right? So they're not going to give you 100% of what the house is worth. It's going to be up to 80% minus whatever your current mortgage is, okay? So then they'll give you a line of credit for that amount. Usually your personal credit is going to reflect if you get approved or denied. So just keep that in mind. And then they'll ask for proof of income. So you should, if you're going to do it with the trust, then you should have proof of income for the trust, meaning bank statements. If you don't, then they will ask you to co-sign, and then you can provide them with your W-2s.
Okay, because my husband already have like a HELOC account, right, on the property. And then when I asked the bank, he was like kind of telling me, oh, you should do the HELOC first before you put the property into the trust.
Okay, and that is a good idea. So you have to understand that with trust, they ask you for more documentation than they would, because it's a private entity, than they would for obviously you personally, or for your for like if you had an LLC or another entity, okay? So that is a strategy for you to get the loan or the line of credit that you need before you transfer it in there. The reason being is because not every financial institution will lend to a trust. Okay, why? Because remember, your trust is kind of impenetrable, right? And so they look at it as a liability, to where it's like, hey, I'm going to lend her $100,000 to the trust, but then I might not be able to get it back because I might not be able to sue this entity. Right. And so some of those financial institutions, they don't even want to establish a banking relationship. Right. So out of the example that I like to give is, let's just say that there's 100 banks, right? You personally, you can qualify for all 100. Your trust can probably qualify for 10 out of the 100. So you have a very small pool. So if you're going with a particular bank or organization, because you said that your husband already has a HELOC, then go the personal route. And then after you're done closing on the HELOC, then go ahead and transfer it after you got it.
Okay, one more question about the unearned income. So I have for my family trust, I have the 1099 income going to that account. So now I know at the end of the year I have to be able to reduce the amount of taxes I have to pay. I'm going to donate some of that money to my ministry trust. And also, how would I go about when I do my taxes to do the unearned income, where I could put my daughters as, you know, that they receive like a payment, and then they don't have to pay taxes on it, because I know it's up to $14,600 a year that they are able to that I'm able to put in the income for whatever job I had them doing around the house or the business.
Yes, exactly. So what you're going to do is you're going to have them render a service to the organization. You're going to 1099 them that amount, right? So that amount, you know, is the 14,000. So that's going to be 100% tax deductible for you, and it's going to be 100% tax free for them. They're not going to have to pay taxes on that 14,000, and you are going to deduct 100% of that 14,000. So all you have to do is have them render a service, and you 1099 them. So they do have to fill out the W-4.
Okay, so they had to do the W-4 for can you repeat that again? I'm just
Yeah, so you have to fill out, you have to fill out the W-4 you have to, do your proper documentation. So have a board meeting saying that you are hiring this person to fulfill this type of service, and the compensation is going to be this amount, right? So you'll have that in your board meeting, and then they will fill out the W-4, which allows your organization to 1099 them.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. You have any other question?
No, just was.
Oh, yeah, we just want to make sure about the.
Like your real estate attorney doesn't agree with.
No, because when we was talking about what attorney that even that told my husband two different things, because now you talking about the private and the public. Our attorney, which helped us close on the house, when we spoke to him about the trust, transferring the property into the trust, he was just giving us all the negative background of it. But I was explaining to my husband how important it is to protect the assets. God forbid something happened to us. It outweighs what the lawyer is actually telling us.
I mean, it's up to you guys, but I agree with you. I mean, if anything happens to you, just imagine what's going to happen to your kids.
But Christine, thank you so much. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
the information. And like I said, for everybody here in this meeting, you should really go into protecting your assets, and this is the way to go. And she will do hand by hand, and she's always available to provide, guidance on how to make it correctly and protect your family future wealth. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much, Kenya. Appreciate you. Next we have Bashan. Hey, Bashan, how are you?
Mr. Vet, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well as well. Thanks a lot. I would like to piggyback out off of Kenya. The process actually works, and I would suggest to anyone looking to protect themselves or families that they should invest in it. I just wasn't sure how in depth I can go as far as my inquiry, the question that I can ask. So, in the course, you showing us how to do the trust, there's an area called trust purpose. And in that section, you're able to create an extra purpose for the trust, as far as protecting your family's wealth, generational wealth, so on and so forth. You did give us an option to add anything extra. So I did come up with something. I wanted to run it by you to see if that's possible for the purpose of the trust. But like I said, I'm not sure how in depth I can go here.
Yeah, I think that we should do it privately. So because we have 50 something people on the call, and I don't want you to share your trust purpose with all of those people. So, yeah, so what I can do is I can give you a ring after this, and then you just run it by me. We can just talk about it for 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. Because I do have two other questions that is probably kind of in depth as well. So yeah, that would be
Okay.
cool.
Okay, all right.
Right?
I will give, yep. We can talk about it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Bashan.
All right, take care.
You too. All right, next we have Arshia. How are you?
Hi, Christina. I'm good. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And this is your program is amazing. I sat down and it took me 3 days to set up all my trusts. I haven't registered. I got the EIN for one of them. I haven't done for the rest because I wanted to run it with you before. But this is such an amazing program, and I'm glad I invested in myself actually to get this program.
Thank you so
And
much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
yes, I had some questions. We had an appointment today. Somehow it got mixed up, and I missed your phone call.
Oh, it's
But
okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, so I mean, whenever you're able to speak, I don't know if you want to do it later today or tomorrow, because I was calling to ask you if you wanted to do a Zoom to share your screen or if you wanted to just do a regular phone call. And I left you a voicemail, but it's absolutely okay.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to do a Zoom and
Okay.
anytime. I'm available today if you're also available after the call.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I can email you the Zoom link.
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
you're welcome. Thank you. All right, next we have Giles. Uh, I hope I'm saying it right.
Gilles,
Gilles. Okay,
Gilles.
Gilles. Okay.
Saki, Gilles. Yes.
Gilles.
Um, yes.
Wonderful.
Yes. Like everybody said, thank you for this program. It's a great resource, or a great asset for us to know this information. I think I said before that I, I I've been through the whole module, all the 43 modules in like 3 days, and I've already got my trust typed up. Still working through some language in there. I'm hoping to, probably before Thanksgiving, have everything set and getting
Congratulations.
EIN and notarization, all that. Thank you. I do have a couple of questions.
Yes.
I have a thought of creating a trust to use as grantor for future trusts. Is it a conflict of interest if I'm the trustee on the on those on that trust?
Yeah, so you can't sign both as the grantor and the trustee. So if you have a co-trustee for the future trust, then you would have them sign.
Okay, all right. And then the question I have is, when I do for my family trust or business trust or FBO trust, um, do I when we're doing like annual meetings, who's including all that? Sure, is it the successor, protector, if I have one, beneficiaries? Who's included in all that in that meeting?
So you can invite anybody that you want that is associated. So you can invite the protector, the successor, all of the co-trustees. If you have a secretary, if you have a treasurer, if you have a general trust manager, and the beneficiaries. So you can invite them, but who should be a part of it is the board. So the board is going to consist of you as well as the people that you appoint on your board.
Okay. And then and last question for today. Uh, so if I want to create a trust to be a grantor for future trust, which trust language should I use? Should I use the business trust language, or should I use the family trust language? Which one should I use?
You should use the business trust because the business trust is created to manage other entities, meaning other trust.
Copy that. Thank you
Oh,
very much for
okay.
your help.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Next we have Saji, I think it's Saji Sharif.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. How are you?
All right. I have a few questions here. Uh, First would be when you say you can transfer a property into trust. Now, if the property has a mortgage on it, can that be put in a trust?
Yes, it can. So you still own the property even though it has a mortgage. The mortgage is going to remain intact. And when you transfer the property, it does not trigger the due on sale clause. So the house is still going to be protected, but the mortgage is going to remain on your credit and it's going to remain intact as far as continuing to make those mortgage payments.
Okay, so then will the mortgage company, the lender, have to be notified? Because so we would be, if it's a mortgage, we still do a quick claim deed?
Yeah, you can still do a quick claim deed and you can let them know. That's completely fine. So you can let them know. You can also notify them that that you're gonna have like an authorized like representative, which is going to be the trust, be responsible for the mortgage payments.
Okay. And then I have a bunch of other questions as well, if it's all right to ask it, or is it something that I should email or something at another time? I don't want to take too much of everyone's time that have questions.
Oh, no problem. You can email me. So do you see my contact information in the chat?
Uh,
Like my email
I,
is there, my assistant's email is there. So you can email us and then our phone number is there too. You see the phone number?
yeah,
Okay,
the
those are the ways.
305. Okay.
Yeah, you can contact. So if you call that number, I answer.
Okay, awesome. But I did have one question here. When you say as far as the asset protection, and then see if and if you make the trust, and then when you had made a statement where when you put the any asset or a house or anything in a trust, you no longer own it. But if someone looks back into it, like say if they wanted to sue you or something, doesn't it show that at one point it was owned by me and then all of a sudden it's in a trust? Wouldn't someone like piece things together and say, well, you must have owned it and you just put it in a trust so we can try to, file a lawsuit against you or anything like that?
So yeah, so there's skip tracing when they're able to see, who previously owned it, right? It even shows on the deed who deeded it over. So they're gonna see that you deeded it over to the trust. That's very much true. But that doesn't mean that the trust, that doesn't mean that you're associated with the trust, right? So you could have deeded it over to, a random trust, right? Or you could have even quote unquote sold it, right, to a trust. So it doesn't mean that it is you. So they don't know that you're the trustee of the trust. Why? Because the trust is private. They can't find the documentation or the indenture of the trust. So all they see is that the house is owned by a trust and that it was owned by you. So they can try to put two and two together, but if you deny it or if you say that you're not associated with the trust, I mean, you could very well do that as well. So, it does not mean that because you deeded it to the trust that you're associated with it. What if you deeded it over to your brother's trust? That's not your trust. You don't have control over that entity and you don't have control over that entity. So, I mean, what you're saying is, it's possible.
Okay. And then now you just triggered another thought because if you say not associated with that trust, but if in the webinar you had said that to control it, we become the trustee, then and then in essence, we are showing that we are associated with the trust because we are the trust named trustee. And isn't that shown on public record or something?
No, it doesn't show on public records. So your documents are private. So I'm not saying for you to say that you're not associated. What I'm saying is for you not to disclose that you're associated.
Okay.
Okay? So you don't have to tell anyone you're the trustee of that trust.
Oh, okay.
That
I
is,
didn't know that the trustee was shown in public record when you record well, I guess when the trust gets recorded or something. Again, I'm familiar with everything, so I'm probably just making it too simple. But so once you have a trust, you don't record anything about the trust in like when you property or something like that, and then it doesn't show who owns the trust or who's involved in the trust.
so so a trust is a contract. You don't record the contract. You do
Okay.
not, you don't disclose the contract to the public. You don't disclose it to the dealership, to the bank, to the title company. You don't, no.
Okay. I appreciate it, and I will send an email with the other questions that I got. And thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. All right, next we have Immaculate. Immaculate, do you have a question?
I do. Sorry, I was trying to mess with the mute button.
Oh,
Great. So I had a question about retirement account.
yes.
So I have a little bit of fund in my retirement account, and when I try to donate money from the retirement account so I can put it in the trust, one of the question it asked me was when if I'm the owner of the charity, then it's not gonna apply, and that kind of confused me. Then I stopped.
Yeah. Okay, so you remember we said that a trust is its own entity, so no one owns it. So it's not an organization that's owned by a human person. So you are the authorized signer on it, but you're not the owner of it. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's what you need to know and understand. So that type of entity you can't associate ownership with that entity. So they are traditionally talking about a nonprofit that you would set up in through the state, where they have owners associated with it.
Like a 503.
Yeah, a 501.
Okay. My next question is, you said that out of 100 banks, maybe 10 banks will be the ones that can, set you up with a bank account for a trust. Maybe, I was,
Not a bank account, funding. So meaning like a
um,
mortgage or a credit card or a loan or a line of credit.
okay. Um, okay. Thank you. I think you clarified that it was funding, not just setting up the account.
Right, not just setting up the account. So majority of the institutions out here offer trust accounts. There you will find a few that don't, but almost all of them do.
I went to my local bank, and when I was asking about the trust, they were looking at me like I'm confused. Like they don't know what the hell I was talking about. And then it makes you wonder, it kind of makes you self-deflate. And so, or doubt,
So
I don't want to say doubt yourself, but then you're like, what the hell? Um,
okay,
just keep
so
just keep knocking different banks.
no, so did you tell them that you wanted to open up a checking account for a trust?
Yes.
Okay, and what did they tell you?
They're like, you mean a regular checking? And I'm like, no, I have my certificate of trust and my EIN for my trust, but I want to open a bank account for this trust. And they kept just looking like they're not even understanding what the hell I was saying.
Yeah, so some bankers, they don't know. You have to understand that a trust is a rare type of entity. A lot of people are familiar with the LLCs and the corporations. So, and one is that not every single bank offers a trust account. So that's why I always tell people, look on the bank's website first or call to ensure that they offer trust accounts and that they offer trust accounts for an irrevocable trust. So the banks that I recommend are Truist, TD Bank, Navy Federal, US Bank. I tell people to stay away from Wells Fargo and Chase, but you can open up a trust accounts with them as well. The Signature Fed. So there's a couple of different banks that you can go. But yeah, so maybe that particular Maybe that particular bank doesn't offer trust accounts because I know that not every bank does. Usually it's the smaller banks that don't, and the bigger regional banks do. So go ahead and try either any of the ones that I listed, or just do a little bit more research in your area, because the banks that I listed, those banks are not, nationwide. They're not everywhere. So like Truist is not everywhere. Navy Federal is not everywhere. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Next we have Miss Johnson.
Greetings. How is everyone doing today?
Doing good. How are you, Miss Johnson?
I'm doing good. Listen, I'm not going to keep you long. I just have a few questions in regards to something you were talking about with the insurance transfer.
Yes.
Dealing with State Farm, they have their own type of irrevocable life insurance trust. Can I take my insurance now and not use their irrevocable trust and put it in my own trust? My
Yeah, you
current
can.
insurance. So I have, okay. And
Yes. So
do I have to go through them to do it, or is that something I can do?
yes. Yes. So you have to contact State Farm and let them know that you have a trust estate and that you need the forms to transfer ownership and beneficiary information, and they'll provide you with the forms. So it doesn't matter what carrier you are, you can change the owner and the beneficiary and the payer of those carriers.
Okay. And because when I tried to contact the customer service, they, kind of diverted me to their particular irrevocable life insurance trust. And I knew there was a way to get around it, but I wasn't sure. The other thing is, I noticed that you didn't go in any specific depth about the land trust. Is there any particular reason why you don't, or is that something that you think is a good thing? Because my property has an easement on it, and transferring it into an irrevocable trust, how does that affect the easement? And also, how does that differ in retrospect to getting a land trust? And can I get a land trust and just put it in the irrevocable trust? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you can get a land trust if you want to. A land trust is just specific for real estate. And so other people like to put other assets in their trust, not only real estate. So the land trusts are limited, but it's primarily to hold real estate. And so with the other trusts, like the business, the private, and the nonprofit, you can own real estate with those trusts as well. So that's why I
Does
don't
it have,
talk specifically about a land trust, just because it's designed to just do one thing, which is hold real
okay.
estate.
Now, is there any specific, so like if I'm trying to maintain my water rights and anything like that, I can still do that inside of the irrevocable trust, not
Yes, you
worrying about the
can.
land?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And
yes, you can. I will tell you that, every single county is different, so just check with your county. Just do a
okay.
little due diligence, check with your county, but everything is still going to remain intact.
Okay. And doing the quick claim deed won't change any of that. It's just literally just like a normal quick claim into, like if I was doing a regular investment, quick claim, just giving it to the trustee.
Giving it to the trust. Yes.
To the trust, yes. Okay, so the last question I have, so I can get out your hair, is with the trustee, becoming a trustee, does the grantor have to be the one to put everything in the trust, or once the trust is established, can the trustee do it?
Once the trust is established, the trustee can place any and all assets that they want into the trust. And it doesn't only have to be the trustee, it could be anyone. So it could be, anyone. So it could be your parent, your sibling, a child, anyone can put assets, place assets, or gift assets or proceeds to the trust. It doesn't just have to only be the grantor or just only have to be the trustee.
So I don't think I asked that right. So let's just say my mother, I want her, like she wants her bonds in a trust. once I become a trustee, do I have to get her to put, she's 80 something years old. Do I need her to be the one to process the bonds being transferred into the trust, or is that something that I can do
So the owner of
as a
the asset,
trustee?
the owner of the asset is the one that has to transfer into the trust.
That's why I wanted to make sure. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that. I was reading a couple of books and I got a little confused on that, and I just wanted to make sure. Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a
Hey,
great
you're
evening.
welcome, Ms.
Thank you.
Johnson.
Everything was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have a good evening. Thank you so much. All righty. Gil.
Gilles?
Jill? Is it Jill? Oh my
Gilles.
God.
Gilles.
J-I-L.
It's
Okay. I keep saying Gil. I don't want to. I apologize.
you're fine. It's actually, if you spell it out G-E-E-L, Gilles, you'll get it. Soft
G.
G, eel.
Okay.
So soft G, eel, Gilles.
Jill. Okay. Jill.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Sorry to jump on back in the line, but I do have a question about as a first trustee, if I become incapacitated, that could be unconscious from an accident or go into a hospital, I have to be under like medical coma. If a co-trustee or successor trustee stepped in, is there anything to protect the trust there? Can I temporarily activate a protector trustee for the time that I am incapacitated?
Protect you from what? From your position?
Not necessarily position, but from the whoever steps in while I'm incapacitated from doing whatever they wanted.
I mean, so the way that it is designed is for the successor trustee to step in if you become incapacitated. They have to follow the trustee powers and the bylaws in the trust. So they have to maintain, you know, what you have already structured or established, right? So you want to choose someone that's reliable and that you trust. Now you can appoint a protector, The protector will watch the trustee to ensure that they are operating the trust efficiently and effectively. So I'm not sure if you're referring to that.
Yes, I was referring to a protector, but can the protector only be activated temporarily, like until I'm back in the first trustee position?
So once the protector is appointed, then they pretty much serve indefinitely and they are going to choose their own successor.
Okay. I asked because I've been talking to one of my sisters about putting her home in a trust, and she's worried about if she ever becomes that incapacitated person that her kid will sell the house from under her. She's like worried, but I'm like, no, they can't just do it.
Yeah,
But
exactly. So, in that situation, she definitely wants to make her kid the beneficiary and they won't have the power or authority. That's a lot of parents' concern. And so she never needs to put that child in a position of power, which is doesn't appoint that child as a successor or a trustee if she's worried that her child will liquidate the assets.
okay, so as long as they're not trustees but just beneficiaries, there's no chance
Yep,
of something like that happening.
there's no chance of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much again.
You're so welcome, Jill. All right, and then we have one last person, Miss Patrice Mills. How are you? And then we're gonna wrap it up for today, you guys. I am so grateful that you guys were here and that you hung on for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Miss Patrice, are you available?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, wonderful. How are you?
Thank you for the webinar. It's a great information. I had two questions. One, piggybacking off of one that somebody else asked. I guess they got to it before me. I have a 401k at my job, and in order to I don't know if it's transfer or give the asset to the trust. Would I just be making it the beneficiary of my 401k?
Yes, so that's why it's important to do an inventory of your assets, because not all of the assets qualify to be owned by the trust. A 401k can't be owned by the trust, especially if you're still employed with the employer. So you can only list the trust as the beneficiary of your 401k.
Okay. And then my second question was in regards to when you spoke about the UIL index policies, and
Yes.
you were speaking about using your, I guess, your income that you're earning currently to invest in those. Were you saying that you want to get to a point to where you're basically putting most of your money, I guess whatever income you're earning, into those policies so that you could then borrow against the policy to fund the
Yes.
trust?
Um, you can't say to fund the trust, but borrow against the policy to be able to then put that money somewhere else, right? So that money is going to be utilized twice. So first you're putting it into the policy, so that's the first utilization. Then your funds are going to remain intact inside of the cash value. You're going to borrow from it and put it in its second location. The second location could be anywhere that you want it to be. It could be back in your bank account to pay bills, or it could be for another investment. So whatever you intended on using those funds for. So you just want to park it first into your policy, borrow out the maximum of what you can borrow out, and park it somewhere else.
Okay. And then my last question was in regards to current bank accounts that you have. Would that also be putting the trust as a beneficiary owner?
Yes, yes. So you're gonna have to list the trust as a beneficiary. Those accounts, primarily like your checking and savings accounts, they're gonna remain in your personal name. You'll have the trust be the beneficiaries, and then you have to open up a new account, different account, that's in the trust name. And so those funds are going to be protected from any litigation. With brokerages, they're a little bit more simple. Those, if they're in your personal name and you own stocks and bonds, then you can contact the brokerage and they can change the ownership into the trust.
Okay. So, but you don't want to like close your personal accounts. You basically keep them and then make the trust a beneficiary.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. And you want to keep those for personal expenses that have no relation to the trust. You don't want to commingle funds.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Ms. Patrice. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate everybody for being here tonight, you guys. And the only thing that I want to say is take action on the information that I provided you guys. You can go to the website, wealthytrusty.com. You can enjoy 20% off using discount code TRUST20. If you guys are not able to pay in full, we do have payment plan options available, so they are listed on our website. And you can also put a deposit down within the next 48 hours if you wanted to secure the 20% discount. So you can see the deposit link that's also in the chat. If you need access to these links, please go ahead and send us a text or an email, and we'll be able to send you those links as well. So thank you so much for being here, and go ahead and be that generational curse breaker that I know you are, because you would not be on this call today if you wasn't. And just continue to, move forward, get your affairs in order, and change the trajectory of your family. So everyone have a good night and a